Joining me now is David Ellefson of Megadeth and the band Ellison. David, thanks so much for taking the time to chat with me again. I appreciate it. And
You're
also
welcome.
joining us is Ellefson vocalist Thom Hazaert. Hey guys, thanks again for joining me. I like the
Yeah.
excitement. And Tom, before we're done, I was just mentioning this to Dave. There are several things I'm going to ask you about that are behind you.
Oh,
There's a giant Spider-Man and some other stuff.
there is. He's over there. I have. You should see my whole house looks like this too. It's not even just my office. Like it's insanity at this point.
Yeah.
However,
Well,
I was going to ask you about some of the ones like the blue whale. Looks like you've got some nice children's paintings.
I know. It
I
looks
like that. I like that.
yeah, no, this is this is just the artistic expression of myself at 44. I thought that I did a good
Even
job
better.
doing that well. Yeah, these the majority of these are from my 5-year-old son and my 2-year-old daughter, and there are other angles I can use. I just kind of like this one with with the kids.
Hey, we can hire him to do album covers in about 10 years, so it's perfect.
That's right. Yeah, I think we need to have an elementary school plus head out there. So I think it's about time. Well, I'm very excited to talk to you guys just in general, but really excited about this No Cover album. Personally, I like covers albums. Ace Frehley did one a couple years ago. He has a second one coming out like in weeks. Mm-hmm. And I always think it's cool to hear these different takes on songs, but it also tells you a lot about the musicians, what they've chosen to cover. So how did this project come about for you guys?
Back in June, Tom and I were on the phone just assessing what the rest of this year was going to look like. And we have an Ellefson solo record of mostly original material in progress. We put a couple songs out earlier this year. Back in April, we put out a song called Simple Truth. And then we did a reimagined version of the Post Malone song, Over Now. And we kept on schedule to put those out because we had some Japanese and Australian tour dates that were supposed to fall in line right after that. But then, of course, with pandemic stuff, everything was moved back till next year, at least. So, Tom just said, he goes, why don't we do some covers? And, we just started spitballing on a half a dozen songs. And, and with everything, in this world, you can kind of go, well, look, if worse comes to worse, we can just pop them out digitally and, kind of make it, that thing. And then it just took over from there. And
yeah, I mean, originally we had, when we were on tour in Italy last year, me and Andy and Paula were we were talking about doing some covers for like Japanese B-sides and stuff for the record, which is where the Billy Idol song came from. I mean, me and our band and we're discussing that like last year when we were on tour, and David, and that's kind of so. And then that idea of doing a handful of covers for like Japanese B-sides and extra stuff was just like, let's just do a cover record. Fuck it. So we did, and we just kind of picked all these great songs. A lot of it stuff that David did pre-Megadeth, like Motorhead, Love Me Like a Reptile. Greg Handevitt, who was in David's band back home in Minnesota, and now that's how attached me and David are. I'm telling David's stories now, but Greg, like we got Greg Handevitt to plan it, and a lot of it kind of goes back to David's really formative years before Megadeth, playing in cover bands, and some of the stuff that I grew up on, and brought me here.
Yeah, well, I want to go through some of the songs, and I think it's a great assortment, a very, some interesting deeper cuts from some bands that everybody knows. Starting with the song that's the single, Wasted, which is a Def Leppard song, but not one that people automatically think of because it's from On Through the Night. And I think that, Def Leppard does very well what they have done, from sort of like mid to late 80s onward, but it's very easy to kind of forget just, how much heavier those first records were. And talk a little bit about the choice of that song. And I understand that Frank Hannon from Tesla has a little bit of a guest on there. And talked to him about a month ago, and he's always such an entertaining character. So it's great to work with him on this.
Well, guys my age, and I'm 55, I don't need to do the Hollywood thing where I'm perpetually forever 30 or 29 years old, But my age, we all played Wasted in cover bands growing up. And, there's two Def Leppards. There's, in I think, my opinion, the new wave of British heavy metal Def Leppard, which is On Through the Night, and a bit of a transition over into High and Dry. And then after that, they very clearly were, transformed into being a big arena pop rock act, and had guitars. So they, there was a part of it that was retained. But and I think it's pretty obvious because they don't play very much off of the early Def Leppard record anymore.
They literally just started playing Wasted in the last few years. I think when they did the Vegas residency, they did it, and
and I had asked,
just Hysteria alone has like what 7 not number one, but like top 10 singles. So it's tough to to leave.
Well, here's the funny thing. Probably my 2 favorite Def Leppard records are On Through the Night and Hysteria. I mean, so just so you'd get the spread of that, and I guess probably High and Dry would probably fit right in there after that. I did not buy Pyromania. Ironically, that's the record that's probably Tom's favorite Def Leppard record.
He's for people just listening, he just brought there's some kind of commemorative version of Hysteria that he just
Hysteria,
the crazy Hysteria box set. It's got,
look at that thing.
It's like 8 discs and a DVD. It's actually such a cool package.
Insane. And one of my favorite memories with Def Leppard was for a couple of years, 2007 and 2009, I actually played bass for Ronnie Montrose. And my friend Jimmy DeGrasso called me, got me the gig. And 2 of the shows that we initially did right out of the gate were opening for Def Leppard. And it turns out Def Leppard put Ronnie on the gigs because, they needed a support act, and these were kind of one-offs. And they were huge Montrose fans. So we're in the dressing room at the arena in Jacksonville, and Phil Collin and Joe Elliott walk in, and of course I was a Montrose fan, but I'm in Ronnie's band, so we're kind of past the fan thing a little bit, and we're just working professionals. But I'm definitely a huge Def Leppard fan, obviously, and they walk in, and I'd never met the Def Leppard guys before, and they walk in, and I'm kind of fanboying on them. They're fanboying on Ronnie. And it was just sort of this, multi-generational legacy.
That continues now with me and us covering.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So it's, it's just, I think that's kind of the beauty of it is how this goes, and it just continues to hand down to the next generation. And it's interesting, Megadeth, we were on tour in 2000, I think it was 2017. We did a show in Milan, and Last in Line were opening for us, and I was not yet aware of them, and I of course knew Vinny Appice and Phil Suzanne, and I really connected there on that date, and I went over to Vinny Vinny Campbell, and I said. It's so funny. Me and Dave Mustaine had just mentioned this week about how Megadeth and Def Leppard should do some shows together, like do a tour, right? So it was just this funny meeting, and that's what he even said. He said, yeah, it's funny in Def Leppard we don't really go back to that first record. We don't really do much back in that new wave of British heavy metal. I think kind of in Joe Elliott's eyes, he's sort of, the band has kind of, for him, has been more about the bigger successes they had during the pop years. Yet,
and the funny thing is, Phil wants to do heavier stuff, and Phil wants it. Phil did a guest appearance with one of my bands that was on one of my labels, and it was a kind of heavier, upbeat song. He's like, man, I just love playing. And me and Phil actually did a cover of "It's a Long Way to the Top," AC/DC, for a movie soundtrack that actually never got used, but I still have it floating around somewhere. But Phil likes the heavy stuff, man. Phil's great. And it's funny. I saw something on a Jackson Guitars Instagram takeover because I had done one, and a couple weeks earlier Phil had done one, and right away one of the first riffs Phil starts playing is "Wasted," which of course is not a track he played on. So he being in Def Leppard, he's a fan of it. But I get it. I mean, look, it's in Megadeth. "Killing Is My Business" has become this sort of sleeper cult classic over the years, and I'll talk to Dave about it. I'll just say, man, that record, because we've reissued it 3 times now, and finally we called it The Final Kill. Like, we're done. We are not going to reissue the record anymore. But it's funny how young fans, teenagers and stuff, they love "Killing Is My Business," and to me and Dave, it's kind of this record is like, it was kind of the one that got us going, but it's not one that once we started making our probably more successful records, we felt better about the songwriting, and the production was better on those records. And so we kind of just left "Killing Is My Business" a little in the background, and yet we get fans all the time who want to hear us play stuff from it. So I totally get,
the comparison with Def Leppard and that again, that first record.
And I think that was kind of part of our discussion. I mean, it's funny. I'm the one who brought up doing a Def Leppard song. We're both big fans. Just I'm a little younger than Dave. Like I'm 10 years behind Dave, so we're just from different eras. Like my first Def Leppard record was Pyromania, and obviously I love Hysteria. And then I kind of went back and discovered High and Dry and On Through the Night. And we both were like, let's do new wave of British heavy metal Def Leppard. And what better song than Wasted? And then kind of the idea for the cover sort of came from that. I don't know if you've seen the cover, but it's a very loving homage to the On Through the Night cover, a similar
with the truck.
Except David's bass is in the back. And again, that's just a loving homage to, we're like, look, we're doing a cover record. We might as well cover a cover too.
I think that's a great idea. And I want to talk about the rest of the band in general, obviously, and there's a ton of people that you've already
wait, you don't want to talk about Def Leppard for the entire interview?
Believe me, actually I do. I just feel like that we could get bogged down in it for a while. Although to be fair, the thing that you were saying about Def Leppard, they are one of those bands that it wouldn't be shocking to see them tour with Megadeth. And then of course they did like one of those double bill tours a couple years ago that I went to with Journey, and it was like some nights Journey closed, some nights Def Leppard closed. It's like so I think that there's
and I saw that tour and it was amazing too. But David's right, Joe kind of tries to distance Def Leppard from the metal thing and the heavier stuff. So unfortunately, I think that would. But God, Megadeth and Def Leppard, what a great tour that would be.
Let's start a petition. We'll start an online petition during the pandemic.
Just as soon as they're touring again, that's the tour that
maybe we could do a virtual tour, one night only online, and then it's over.
And they can call it the Megadeth tour. I mean, come on.
The Megadeth
writes itself.
Yeah. Well, no, they've got to make up the tour that they had to cancel for this year, because I feel like they might have sold a couple of tickets to that one. The one with Motley Crue and Poison.
It's kind of big.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about the rest of the band. I know that Bumblefoot is in the band, and he obviously, people know he's this great guitarist, but he seems like such a, I guess because he goes by a nickname by Bumblefoot, he seems like this mysterious character. But it's also, I remember hearing he was touring as like the vocalist for Asia last year. So
he was,
he just seems like such an interesting guy. So talk about how you guys got to know him and just collaborating with him.
I think me and David both met him kind of on our own. I became friends with him. I helped him put out some of his records. The last record, Little Brother Is Watching, we put out on EMP and kind of distributed that for him. And we just kind of came out. Him and David were friends. I think he did some stuff with Metal Allegiance too, right? And then he came out on one of our earliest tours, where this whole thing started kind of by accident. David went out and did Bass Story, which was just kind of him. First, we did it with two of our bands on Combat, and they kind of just backed up David. And then we went out as kind of a more solo thing, like storyteller thing. And then it ended up just jamming. And one night he needed somebody to sing Megadeth songs, so I went up and did Peace Sells, and it turned into, Ron ended up coming out with us, and Dave Sharp and Opus from Dead by Wednesday, and Clayton from Hatchet, and slowly it became a band, and that became the kind of U.S. touring band. And then we connected with Andy Martingelli in Italy and Paolo Caridi, who are amazing. And that kind of with Bumblefoot kind of formed the core of the real Ellison recording band that became like the band now, and it's everybody's so talented. Ron is so much more than just a guitar player. I mean, he's an amazing vocalist, an amazing singer. I mean, every time I'll sing a song, I'm like, man, this is so great, but it just needs something. And then Ron just sings like two things on it, and it's like the heavens open, and it's great.
Yeah. So, and so then you guys have mentioned the actual band, but David, talk about just some of the guests on this album. I think that, obviously you'll know plenty of people who would want to be a part of, anything if you ask, but the idea of like, hey, here's some covers we're doing, that probably, it piques a lot of interest of like, oh my God, I really want to play on that song or that, that.
Yeah. Well, and this thing did not start as an all-star record. No. It started with us just, me and Tom just riffing on what songs we wanted to do. It started with probably half a dozen of them. Then we got to things like Queen, and for me, the two Queen songs would either be Death on Two Legs or Sheer Heart Attack. And Sheer Heart Attack was such a great one. But my first thing was, well, who's going to sing it? And that's when Thom said, "We goes, why don't we have Bumblefoot do it?" And I was like, oh my God, there you go, he can do it. So he did. And then Thom added to that. We had Doro add to that. So, it's part of me, I wanted to get a female voice involved, in particular on that song. And Doro, we had just worked with her on the Monsters of Rock, or I'm sorry, on the Mega Cruise back in October. And so it's great to just reconnect with her. Megadeth and Warlock had toured back in the 80s, late 80s together. And then, Thom happened to be on the phone with Charlie Benante about an unrelated conversation. And Charlie was talking about how he was, frustrated, like a lot of people are, trying to make records, writing, and Thom just extended. He said, well, hey, do you want to play in a few tracks with me and David? We got this covers record. So he jumped right in.
Yeah.
We talked about, I don't know, somehow Al Jorgensen's name came up, and because Al's this sort of aloof, mysterious, dark figure that looms in this awesome industrial metal, heavy metal,
the metal industrial complex, I call it.
Yeah, it's like, metal people like Al, the sort of the industrial crowd, which is very unique into itself. And yet in the early origins of Ministry was kind of very almost poppy a little bit, So to connect with Al, and I just gone down to see him when he came through Phoenix a few months ago. And so to connect with him and to get him to participate, and there's a few people like that not only are these songs very kind of unique in particular, because it's not a very traditional cover record by the song selection, but also to get the guests involved, with Jason McMaster. It was great to get Dave Lombardo to play on a track. Dave McClain, who's in Sacred Reich, he had a great career with Machine Head
for a long time.
Yeah, so to get these men and women who have these very kind of eclectic careers, I think
Frank
win for this.
And that's how it started, was just a couple people, and then we started talking to Brandon Yeagley from Crowbot, and he was on a couple songs, and Jacob Bunton, who sings for Mick Mars and his solo band, actually did some vocals on Wasted, and Mark Slaughter's on it. It's just such a laundry list of amazing people. Frank Cannon, Troy Lucetta from Tesla, Greg Handovit, Jimmy DeGrasso, Andrew Freeman from Last in Line, who actually, there's a couple songs that I was supposed to sing, and I don't know if you know this, but in the middle of making this record, I had a heart attack. My heart stopped, and so it took me out of commission for like 2 weeks, and there was definitely some recovery time, and that was just like 2 months ago, not even. So there's a couple songs that I was supposed to go and sing, and like we did Over the Mountain, and Andrew sang it, and I was going to throw vocals over it and do stuff with him, and I'm like, fuck it, we'll just put Andrew's version on it. So like that, and Sweet F.A., David's friend from Slash, Todd Kearns.
Todd Kearns,
Kearns sang that, and that's amazing. It's cool. A couple of these, even Jason McMaster saying Riff Raff. It's funny. We were going to go back and forth. It's funny, when I do AC/DC, it sounds like Brian Johnson. Like Jason McMaster is Bon Scott, so he's saying Riff Raff. And I'm like, fuck it, let's just use his. Like, I have some background vocals in the chorus, but I'm like, I'm not going to outdo Jason McMaster singing Bon Scott. Fuck, just let him do it.
Well, first of all, it's glad to hear that you're doing better, Thom. I actually I didn't realize that. Glad that you're sitting here with us talking today, and that you're able to record some stuff for the record.
Well, and it was funny. I texted Bumblefoot, and literally I was laying in the house. I texted him. I'm like, so how ironic is it that last week we were recording a song called Sheer Heart Attack, and then I just had one. And then he called me like, what? Because nobody knew yet at that point. I was just kind of.
See, it's good thing we didn't do Death on Two Legs then. So we picked the right song.
Oh, good.
So I've heard a few of the tracks. One of them, you mentioned Al Jorgensen, is the Auf Wiedersehen, the Cheap Trick. And anytime I have to use a foreign language, I just say it as fast as possible, because I don't think I even came close. But I think that's I really like the sort of high energy version you guys did. And to me, that song always seems like it's a great one to play, like, an end of a show if you're ever touring with this. But talk about working with, you talked about this enigmatic Al Jorgensen from Ministry. Talk about working with him on that. And
Well,
was that his idea? Is that something like, oh, I would like to do that one? Or
No, me and Tom talked about it, and it was, and I think Tom right away just went, oh my God, if we could get Al Jorgensen, for that very reason. And I've known Al, and I almost toured with him back in the late 2000s. Me and Jimmy DeGrasso almost played in Ministry. I was doing artist relations for Peavey at the time, and the timing for what just didn't work out for me to do it. But Al and I have remained dear friends, and I'm one of the few people he's sort of opened the door to let into his world, and I get his world because I'm in a similar world with Megadeth, in a lot of ways, Dave and Al are very much alike. There's these very much larger than life figures, and they create music in a very unique way, and it's music that touches a lot of people. But there's a very closed off inner sanctum, to our worlds. And so, I'm grateful that Al was open to letting, me bring Tom in, and for that to really work. And Tom and Al clicked. I mean, I don't think Tom has a bigger fan than Al Jorgensen. The irony. And he told me that. He said, he told me, he said, listen, brother, your singer, meaning Tom, he goes, he's great. I don't even know what more I could add to this, So, I mean, right away, but Al is also very good friends with Cheap Trick. Cheap Trick and Ministry are natives of the Chicago area, Rockford and Al coming from Chicago. So, and Al is very good friends with those guys. And so, I think that's one of the things when we did this record is, me and Tom either know or are friends with, or I've toured with pretty much most of these artists on the record. And I think there was a quality level that we wanted to maintain and a spirit of these songs because we know the authors of these songs are going to hear them, be it either Queen, Randy Bachman.
Well, even
whoever,
Al told me he sent Off Beaters into Robin Zander, and he just freaked out over how great it was, So and that's it, And even when I played him Holiday, we did Holiday in Cambodia, and obviously Al and Jello play together in Lard. So he's like, oh my God, I'm going to send this to Jello. I'm going to send this. I'm like,
Ironically, I think the last time I saw the Cheap Trick guys was when I was playing in Montrose. We did a show. It was actually a corporate gig for Shell Oil at a theater up in Walnut Creek up by the Bay Area, and it was Cheap Trick, Montrose, and War. Imagine that lineup, right? Yeah. I mean, I was, as a fan, I'm just watching War going, Low Rider. I was just like, and the Cheap Trick guys are wonderful. They're always just been super cool to us Megadeth guys and stuff. So yeah, it's just another multi-generational thing.
No, that's right. And one of the other song, well, the only other song I've heard three are Free Will Burning, which of course is from British Steel. I wanted to talk a little bit, and Tom, I'm assuming that this was your idea. I noticed that in your version has the Halford scream at the beginning that is actually not in the original. I actually went back and re-listened to it on British Steel to make sure that I remembered it correctly.
Yeah, well, it was. Look, it's actually on Defenders of the Faith, and last year we were on tour. We listened to that record. Me and the band just listened to that record on repeat, man. And then I said, look, I think me and David did the thing with KK Downing last year, which turned into KK's Priest and all the stuff he's doing now. And, and I think we're just kind of avoiding doing a Priest song just because it would be so obvious after doing the thing with KK and Les and all the stuff we did last year. And then we were pretty much done. I'm like, dude, we have to do a Judas Priest song. And and we just kind of picked that one. I know Andy, our guitar player, really liked it. We got McMaster, and he can just do crazy, but it's a little heavier. It's funny because I kind of sing that more like Halford sings in Fight. It's a little more aggressive, a little heavier. But then we got Jason with his crazy, doing the crazy Halford. I wish I would have known. I would have sent you the whole record. I'll send it to you after we're done. But I have like a SoundCloud of the whole record I've been sending to people. Man, it's great. So have you seen the whole track listing? I mean,
there's the list I have has one listed as a TBA. So there's something that's not announced, at least in the list that I was given. So
well, the TBA, I guess we can announce it because everybody knows Beth. We did Beth.
Okay, that I did see on there actually. Yeah.
There you go. That was and I think Over the Mountain might not have been on that original track listing too, just because we didn't know what we were gonna do because I couldn't. hadn't sang it yet.
Yeah, because you mentioned Over the Mountain earlier, and I'm like, I didn't think I saw that one.
Yeah.
So
that one wasn't on
be,
there either.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
But we did. We added "Eat the Rich" by Crocus, which turned out great. We did "Love Machine" by Wasp. We did "Nailed to the Gun" "Fight," which is kind of the only kind of modernish song we did. But it's funny. Originally, we didn't have Judas Priest. We just had "Fight" on there, which I love. David loves. And, so that
couple guys get a little double up. Rob Halford gets a double up with Judas Priest and Fight, and Fast Eddie Clark gets a double up with Fastway and a Motorhead track. So,
one thing that was, and we put a little dedication in the record to all the guys that weren't with us. And it was so heartbreaking to me as I was going through making this list and just realizing so many guys from so many of these bands are gone. I mean, pretty much all of Sweet, the original lineup of Sweet. I mean, all of the original lineup of Motorhead is gone. I mean, it really kind of broke my heart putting that together. So, I mean, to me, this really is just a loving tribute to these bands that me and David both grew up with and, forged us into what we are. I mean, look, and look around me. I'm still immersed in this shit, man. I mean, I have a room full of Megadeth posters, and I mean, I'm a music fan. You know what I mean? This whole thing just came from me being a nerdy fucking music fan. I mean, that's kind of my deal. And I think David started out the same way, but then you move to LA and you get in a band and you get kind of insulated from everything else, and you're not really listening to music. You're kind of more buried in creating it, but look, I'm still so immersed in music and especially that music that I grew up on and really defined me. And that's what a lot of this record is. I mean, it's basically that for me and David, it's the stuff that kind of defined us as musicians and as fucking people,
Yeah, there's a couple things from there that I wanted to ask you about. One, you did mention that I did notice that there was a Fight song on here, and I think that the majority of the other stuff, I mean, I might be off by a little bit. It seems like most of it's from the 70s, early 80s, maybe.
Yeah,
and
all
then,
of it.
Yeah, and then that was just something newer. So was it just as simple as like, oh, we really love that song, let's just do it?
Here's how it happened. I'm literally pick up my phone one day, and a YouTube notification comes across my phone that says, check out F5 Nailed to the Gun. So I had a band called F5 post Megadeth for me back in the 2000s for a few years, and we did a cover of Nailed to the Gun, and Jimmy DeGrasso had recorded it and had played in the video. And right away I hit Tom and Andy Martingale. I said, oh my God, we should do that Fight song again. It's so good. And I called DeGrasso. I said, hey dude, want to throw down want to do a second round too? So that's how that started. And of course, Tom had already put a vocal down. It was really great. And DeGrasso hit me. He said, hey, I just did something with Andrew Freeman from Last in Line, and he loves Fight. He'd love to, participate somehow. I said, sure. Well, look, he can add something. We'll find a place for him. So he jumped in on it, and it just, again, it was kind of one of these come one, come all type of things, I mean, we got to kind of strategically place people where they make sense, of course. But I think the first thing is when you're a fan of something and you're really into it, that makes your home. It's like Doro, when we we had her put that little nice harmony top thing on Sheer Heart Attack, and we asked her, said, hey, do you want to, would you want to hang for a minute and put something on this Motorhead track? And she goes, which one? And I could tell it was sort of if it's too obvious, maybe not, but if it's something kind of a cool deep cut, and so Tom said, Love Me Like a Reptile. She goes, oh my God, that is the perfect song, and you could just almost hear her in her email with her German. Oh yes, I love it. So
I actually read her emails with her accent.
Yeah, exactly. And she was dear friends with Lemmy, so to sort of get her blessing on it, as a close friend to Lemmy, and it was cool. So, again, when people kind of find their home, again, Lombardo, we just said Dave Lombardo, we said, look, these are the songs that I think that we think would, that are available and would be kind of cool. And he picked Riff Raff, and it's like, and there you go. There's your home,
Yeah.
Which Charlie had already tracked drums for. So, but Charlie we had big four drummers fighting over on AC/DC. And we forgot to tell him. I sent him the record, and he's like, those aren't my drums. I'm like, oh, shit. And then I had to be the one to tell him that, oh, shit, yeah, Dave Lombardo wanted to. But Charlie played on Holiday in Cambodia. He played on Off Beater's Day, and he played on Sheer Heart Attack. Charlie had already played on 3 songs. So,
yeah.
But.
You've kind of both referenced something that I was wondering, when it comes to choosing, obviously it's like, well, if we're going to do an AC/DC song, there's a couple ways to look at this. Wow, how do we pick only one? But then for any of these artists, sometimes it's like, oh, I would love to do this song, but either one, maybe the song is too big, or there's already a well-known cover by somebody. Did any of that come into play? Were there ever a consideration of a different Judas Priest song, a different AC/DC song, anything like that?
Yeah, there was. I mean, again, I think, look, there is, as I call them, the bar standards, and I've played them myself. We played some of them in Metal Allegiance. Sometimes I'll get around my friends and someone immediately just starts playing a Kiss song and everybody jumps in, or, someone plays, let's face it, Breaking the Law is like my generation's Stairway to Heaven, down. It's almost like Smoke on the Water. It's become this riff that almost anybody can play, and that's why the song's so popular. And so, we just naturally as fans kind of gravitated away from, oh, well, that was the single. Like, that's kind of not what we want to do, So we went for the deeper cuts, Again, like BTO, we didn't do Taking Care of Business. We did Not Fragile, which is a very
and a lot of this stuff, there really wasn't even, I mean, there's a couple things. Def Leppard, we threw around a couple different ideas. Most of it was just like, let's do this song, like Tear It Loose. We did Twisted Sister, Tear It Loose, and that was actually Eddie Ojada's choice. I hit him up. I said, hey, or I honestly, I kind of wanted to do Burn in Hell or something from Stay Hungry, because that's kind of my era, but I love the entire Twisted Sister catalog. But I asked Eddie, I'm like, hey, you want to play on a Twisted song with us? And he's like, what song? And he's like, why don't we do Tear It Loose? And I'm like, fuck yeah, okay. I hit up David and we did that. So most of the stuff, it wasn't, there really wasn't much of, like, Not Fragile. David called me and said, hey, I want to do Not Fragile. A lot of it were real specific songs that we just picked what they were. There was a couple where we went, back and forth, but most of these came from a pretty specific place.
Yeah, it wasn't like, well, we need a Queen song and a Judas Priest. It was not that at all. These were very, like Tom said, these were very song specific. And as my experience in doing this, again, I've done some of this stuff with Metal Allegiance, and in that band, it's very different because we don't have a singer. At least in Ellefson, we have a singer. Tom's the singer, and it was cool that Tom invited people to sort of duet with him and sing with him. Obviously Bumblefoot, Doro, Jason McMaster. We had Mark Slaughter. These are they're friends of ours. So it's fun. It was kind of like calling your buddy up and saying, hey, you want to come over and lay down a vocal with me? Let's jam.
It's like being 16 years old, except I'm calling all of my rock star idols from when I was 16 years old, going, hey, you want to come to my house and jam on a Kiss song? I mean,
well, that was actually the next thing I was going to mention. It's one of the most unique Kiss songs you could have chosen. I mean, I guess if you wanted the most unique song, you could have picked like Just a Boy from The Elder, but that
we're not going that deep. We're not going Elder deep.
Oh, so wait, you want people to actually listen to the record? Oh.
Well, I agreed. When Tom said Beth, I went, oh my God, dude, that is, I mean, because Peter Criss always had the more rough, raw vocal, which I think we can all agree, Tom, that's his kind of the nature of his voice. And to sing a ballad, I mean, like, that's fucking balls, man, to go out with a ballad, to go that far out and just hang. And our friend Tyson Leslie, who also plays keys for Vixen, and I actually saw him on Shiprocked. He was playing behind Joey Belladonna when Joey was doing his Journey set, Journey. So, I mean, I've seen Tyson in action, and he's magical on the keyboard. So, he lined all that out. Tom sang it. And I literally, every time I hear it, just like the original, I get a shiver and almost a tear in the corner of my eye when I hear Peter Criss sing it. The same thing happens when Tom sang it. I was just freaking awesome, man. I just sat back and I hit, but right away, Tom, remember I called you and go, dude, you brought a tear to my eye. You knocked that one out of the park, dude. That was really, really great, man.
Thank you. And the funny thing is I actually kind of based it on, and I told Dave this after, I kind of based on the Eric Carr version from Smashes, Thrashes, and Hits, which is a little more melodic. And, it's kind of a mix of the two, but which is funny. I mean, a lot of people, unless you're a deep Kiss fan, don't even know the Eric Carr version exists, But
I didn't. And, here's the funny thing. We always say I'm a 70s Kiss fan. Tom's an 80s Kiss fan, right? So it's like I didn't even know that Eric Carr did one because I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it was just for the smashes, thrashes, and hits. And I remember an interview with Peter Criss once where they asked him about it, and he's like, honestly, it's been great for my version of it because people are like, oh, there's a new one. Well, we're gonna play the original, you know. But I'm also an '80s Kiss guy. My brother had Lick It Up and Animalize, and those were the first ones that I got to hear. But
me too.
Yeah, and so it's interesting because I was literally about to mention the idea of hearing somebody else sing Beth. You know, I know that they've had Eric Singer sing it in more recent years, but the idea of somebody else doing it. So I'm very intrigued to hear that one in particular. But since we're talking about Kiss, you referenced it earlier that as part of the Mega Cruise, there was this huge Kiss jam, and I was reading about it.
Yeah.
And this is literally like the one thing that I guess everybody kept their cell phones away because I couldn't find any videos of it. I was like,
there's a few.
Well, I was specifically looking for Doro singing "God Gave Rock and Roll to You,"
and I got to sing it with her, which was we were
that's got to be great.
So, and she asked me, we're backstage. She's like, "Will you come up and sing with me?" I'm like, "Of course."
Well, it's funny because Doro went for all the '80s Kiss songs, and so it's funny. Here's how it started. So I sort of just raised my hand, you know, as a member of Megadeth to say, listen, I've been on a lot of these cruises. I think some kind of an all-star jam would be really cool. It's always a highlight. And so as I started putting a set list together, and it was looking too. Honestly, it was looking like something Metal Allegiance would do, and I did not want to do that because that's very specific how we do that, and it works really well with that cast of players. And add to that, certain people were coming on and off of the boat, you know, with Armored Saints and when Lamb of God was on. So we had to kind of pick this one night. We were sailing the sea, and so I hit Frank Bello. I said, dude, what do we do here, man? Like, I need some help. And he goes, well, you can always do Kiss songs, man. Everyone loves. And I thought, dude, that is freaking brilliant. Yeah. And so, and then ironically, Charlie Benante, you know, Frank's drummer, you know, and Anthrax, you know, we actually really became. Charlie became my musical director with it because obviously I was busy doing a handful of other things as well on the boat. And so we
did more than a handful of things on that damn boat.
Yeah, I mean, we were busy, you know, to the time at Doc, you know, with various clinics and master classes and stuff, you know, acoustic things and whatnot. So Charlie really became, you know, kind of my best friend on kind of put the song list together. He helped kind of really orchestrate and again be the musical director with it and helped kind of put people to task and rehearse it and put it together. So you know, but it was great, and actually it gave me an opportunity for me and Frank we did a short little Altitudes and Attitudes set where we played a few of our tunes right ahead of that to kind of open the show up and kind of warm the crowd up, and then we just rolled right into the Kiss jam, you know. But and like I said, you know, Tom and Doro got a chance to sing together, which then now led to them working on this No Cover record together. So, you know, I always say, man, just say yes, man. You know, musical friendships, once they start, they often keep going forever. And, you know, I'm really lucky that, you know, I've been playing professionally my whole life, but, you know, certainly since we started Megadeth when I was age 18, you know, most of the people that I've got a whole community of people. We all grew up together, you know, around each other, you know, some Big Four members and guys in Overkill and Testament and whatnot. And it's nice that those are my neighbors next door that I call to come and play on records together, and they call me, and it's you know, it's fun to bring Tom into that too, because, you know, Tom's had his own career in the business, often with some younger, you know, kind of more 90s and early 2000s musicians. So we've gotten a chance to work with some of them along the way as well. So it's fun to just be able to call your friends up, and it just so happens they're famous. But the fact that they're famous is always secondary to the quality of their work, you know. Sure. And you know, so to be able to call people who know their way around, you know, they know how to make records off campus, because this was not a record we were able to all meet at, you know, the record plant in LA and make a record. You know, this is a record everybody had to do remotely, and everybody in our world, in our wheelhouse, is all set up to be able to, you know, have home studios and record at home. So it really was just a magical moment that this all came together like this.
Yeah, no, I mean, it seems like it's great for the album, and obviously Frank had the right thinking there that if you tell people there's going to be a Kiss jam, you're going to have to fight. You're going to have to tell people, well, we can't have everybody on the boat, as part of it. So that was exciting, and it was interesting that that Beth was the choice that you guys had. Tom, how was singing "God of Thunder" with Chuck from Testament? Did you guys go back and forth, or?
Yeah, it was fucking awesome, man. It was fucking awesome. I mean, any getting to do anything like that. And I've said this in other interviews. I mean, that Kiss jam really led to a lot of the stuff we did on No Cover. I mean, again, that's when me and Charlie really connected, and we all kind of sort of musically, collaborating, and Doro. And it's funny, a lot of the camaraderie and a lot of the things that led to No Cover came from that. So, singing with Chuck was amazing. Singing with Doro. I mean, I'm a huge Kiss fan too. And I love Testament. And I mean, look, man, all these bands are, my favorite fucking bands my whole life. So, to be able to collaborate with them and to be able to honestly like hang at their level. I mean, that's an honor. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And getting to do it on the ship, do it for the record, I'm sure it's all fun. And it is a great way, it seems, to be able to pass the time when, you can't go out and do shows. Well, you can still, kind of jam with people sort of in this weird technological way to do it. Now, the album we're talking about, of course, is No Cover. And I was reading about how, you can pre-order it with Indiegogo. And there's some of those very interesting incentives that they do for any of those kind of crowdfunding. And I thought some of them were interesting. That you could get a bass lesson from David. And then, of course, there was the one that I liked was be a roadie for a day. And there was one that the one that was like the one that cost the most money was like a stage used bass, and that one was already gone. So it's interesting. You're like some of the middle priced ones. You're like, okay, you get a couple people, and then the high priced ones are people like, well, I need that. So I think that it's an interesting way to like, okay, you want the new record. How about this other stuff? And,
well, my hero Steve Jobs always said, people don't buy what they need; they buy what they want. And sometimes they want the most expensive thing, not because they need it. They just want it, And hey, more people should have bought roadie for a day, because you could probably just be a virtual roadie and you wouldn't even have to get your hands dirty. You could probably just roll out of bed in your pajamas and be a roadie.
That's like, I'm going to check that's me being a virtual roadie right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's a great point, and it does speak to that. Tom, because you have Spider-Man stuff in the background, I'll mention the impulse buy that I had not too long ago. But I saw a copy of Amazing Spider-Man 121, which for people who don't know, that's when Gwen Stacy died. And it was for $200. And I was like, no, that's too much. And then I thought about it the whole rest of the day. I'm like, $200 for a comic book seems crazy. So I went back the next day and bought it.
Tell you what, man, I'm at the point now in my record collection, certain things where all the records I need are $100, $200 records. You just, I always say, look, the time to buy shit is when you see it. I don't regret anything I've ever bought. I regret the shit I didn't buy.
Exactly.
That's a good quote, dude. That's awesome.
Thank you.
You should make that the title of this podcast.
Yeah, I think I'm going to. You should definitely put a clip of Tom saying that on the Indiegogo.
I don't regret the things I bought. I only regret the things I didn't buy.
You're going to regret not being a roadie for Ellefson.
Well, and now the Indiegogo is done, so you can't even be a roadie for a day.
You can't even do it. All right. Well, then you're done for the next time. And before we wrap it up, David, the last time I talked to you was right before the Say Can You Stream event. I wanted to find out how that went, and also give you a chance to talk a little bit more about the Ellefson Youth Music Foundation.
Yes. So the foundation, actually, Tom and actually one of our board members for the foundation, Donnie Schoenrock, who owns a really terrific restaurant called Cat's Hog Heaven. It's a barbecue restaurant back in my hometown of Jackson, Minnesota. I had gotten inducted into the Iowa Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which is just 30 minutes over the border into Iowa from the little town of Jackson that I grew up in. And around that same time, Donnie and Tom were co-conspiring a little gift for me, which was on October 9th is now officially proclaimed as David Ellefson Day in Jackson County, in the city of Jackson. And
it's coming up, man.
It is coming up. I know. We've been trying to put some things together for it, but obviously with pandemics and whatever.
Maybe we should fly to Jackson for the day.
Yeah, maybe we could. We'd almost drive there. We're going to Jackson.
We're going to Jackson.
When they told me this, my first thought was, obviously awesome, and thank you. How do we go kind of to the next level of using that day as a platform and kind of a springboard to create? I always wanted to have a foundation of some sort that could be of a charitable nature. We've been, obviously, as you can see behind me, I've been blessed with a pretty amazing career. And, I read somebody say, and I don't know if it was a coach or if it was some business leader, but, he goes, if you just live your life every day for you, when you die, it's over. But if you live your life always giving back and extending these things out to other people, when you die, your life continues on, and that's called legacy. And that really hit me. And that was really just a couple years ago that I saw that. And it really hit me that it's, my father, we have a farm back in Jackson that has been handed down for generations. The first Ellison, when he came over from Norway back in the 1800s, bought some land. And that farm has expanded and grown. And, my family now has a piece of it. And, to me, that's the legacy, and that's what ties me back to Jackson, Minnesota. Not only did I leave there and go out and become a rock star, but I grew up there. That town raised me. The churches, the schools, and the fine people of that community, they raised me, And so, Thom really had this vision with the Ellefson coffee store that we opened up there, was to bring, because we're both Midwest kids, so how do we bring sort of this Hollywood life that I got to live, how do we bring this back home to the people of Jackson? And so this foundation, between me and Thom and Donnie, we formed this foundation, and we launched it there on October 9th. We gave back some, through Jackson Guitars and Harkey Amplifiers, we gave some equipment back to the Jackson school system. And what Thom and I found, the Grammys, they formed the Grammy Music Education Coalition, so they immediately brought us in under their umbrella to help promote our foundation. And one of the things we found is that there are a lot of rural areas where the music education programs are really suffering. And they go largely unnoticed because they're very small populations. And, I think as we've moved into 2020 here, Thom literally right at the turn of the year said, I really want to spend some time this year on our foundation. I feel like its time has come. And no sooner, 2 months later, the pandemic hit. And Thom called me up and he said, man, let's get to work now and let's start to do some free lessons to people, because schools are closing. Kids are going to be freaking out. They're going to be sitting around bored. Because, again, Thom and I being Midwest kids, snow days are fun for a couple of days, and then you start to lose your mind.
Yeah, try a snow year. A snow year.
Yeah. So right away we started the Schools Out initiative, and Cisco came to us with a wonderful grant of equipment and platforms.
They gave us amazing stuff like this.
Yeah, these big monitors and things that we have. I got one right here as well, so we could give lessons, and that's kind of initially before this cover record when we reached out to Nita Strauss and Bumblefoot and Chris Kale from Five Finger Death Punch and a bunch of our friends, and just said, man, would you be willing to donate a little of your time to give some lessons? And I think one of the things we found is that when your own world is kind of crashing in with the pandemic, tours are canceling and all this stuff, when you start to help someone, suddenly your problems become much smaller and they kind of work themselves out. These tours, all of us had tours that have been canceled. We've had recording dates that have either been pushed back or, indefinitely rescheduled. And so, it's funny, I think as a community, and I credit Thom with this, he right away said, let's pull this together and make it happen. And for me, just because I go, well, look, I'm just one little dude with a bass here. I'm calling my friends and I'm dragging them into it. So I called DeGrasso and we had Bumble and Nita and stuff and Dirk
from Megadeth
and even Kiko. And it really created this community. We really brought people together in a time of pandemic chaos in our own lives, in our own career. And I think from that, that led to No Cover, and it's just really been expanding all this.
And Say Can You Stream, which you asked about, and what was amazing, man. I mean, look, it was a lot of work to put it together, but it was so rewarding and so many people supported. And it was so great. We actually did a follow-up a week later because there were some people that we couldn't even get on the first one. So we did the Oh Say Can You Stream makeup test the following week and had a bunch of more amazing people, Mark Tremonti and Head from Corn and all the, the first one we had Alice Cooper. And I mean, it was just phenomenal. I mean, such a, all the Anthrax guys and Rob from Volbeat and Alice Cooper, as I mentioned, and the Good Mythical Morning guys from YouTube, and just so many cool people rallied to support what we were doing. And it was a great pivot, I think, to kind of just move to this more individual one-on-one thing. And again, it was all just influenced by this pandemic and what was going on in the world, So I think we've really brought a lot of people together and shared a lot of light in a really dark, weird time,
Yeah, no, absolutely. And also for people's reference, it's ellefsonyouthmusicfoundation.org. And, I think that it definitely seems like a good time. And, you referenced Alice Cooper. I guess he's probably practically a neighbor of yours, David.
He is.
Yeah.
He's pretty much the mayor of Phoenix, and
it seems like it, yeah.
And, he also started his foundation, the Solid Rock Foundation. Yeah. And they've been very successful at it. He's done an annual Christmas concert. Mm-hmm. He does an annual golf tournaments, and of course the golf tournament.
David just started playing golf just so he can play in the golf tournament next year.
I say this: I've taken up and quit golf twice, so I've taken it up a third time. We'll see how long it lasts. My kids play now, so they keep me.
They ask me every year, does David play golf? I'm like, no, not really.
Yeah. Now I do. Now I can say I actually bought a set of Callaways and I'm good to go now. So now I can play.
Well, you reference him being the mayor. It seems like a good time to point out that I'm wearing the I want to be elected shirt, which of course,
it's true. It's true. When they want to like light the Christmas tree downtown Phoenix, they don't call the mayor. They call Alice. He's the guy.
Yeah. Well, I do appreciate talking to both of you about No Cover. I know it's out. I think it says October 2nd.
Actually, we're actually gonna push it back. I mean, I think November 20th is actually. Everybody who pre-ordered is still gonna get it in October.
Okay.
But the actual street date, we actually just, obviously my heart thing took us out of commission for a few weeks, and then we did a deal with Japan and some bigger deals for this record. So again, we just want to give us enough time to make sure it comes out properly and everybody has time to market it. And
so it's actually going to be kind of a nice, cool year-end release, which actually is pretty cool because the whole, again, where it all started, kind of the loop, to conclude where we started, the whole thing of us just looking at the year and watching most of the year just go away. I feel pretty good that we've got a nice year-end release, that is cool. It's celebratory, it's fun, it's uplifting. And I feel like, despite all of the adversities of the year, we were able to really pull the community together and everybody joined in and made a kick-ass record.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to hearing more of it. And I know that a couple of the songs can be found on the David Ellefson YouTube channel, just sort of, and there's lyric videos or whatever, but they can still find them there. Yeah.
So all the songs that are out are on Bandcamp. Exactly. I think it's ellefsonband.bandcamp.com or something. You can find it on David's page but I'll send you the SoundCloud link to the whole record.
Well, before we actually go, Tom, you said earlier the great quote about you don't regret anything you buy. And instead of having you run around your office and show me a bunch of stuff, is there something that immediately comes to mind that maybe it wasn't affordably priced, but you have not regretted buying it every day? There seems to be a lot of great collectibles in there.
There are. You know what? I hate to say it, most of that. Here, let me grab something. Hang on. You guys talk for a second.
Okay.
I'll show you one that I...
so that's interesting because now we see ourselves.
Yeah, exactly.
The reflection of his mirror.
Yeah, look at that. Hey, you can see my
there
shirt.
We are.
Nice. Yeah.
Well, obviously, and for all your David Ellefson needs, you just have your own website, David Ellefson.
Yeah, davidellefson.com. Yep, exactly. Everything goes there. Obviously, our Facebook.com/David Ellefson. Twitter's Ellison David. Instagram is David Ellison Bass. So, where we put it one place, we end up pushing it out everywhere. So,
right, exactly.
Yeah,
So
either the Facebook or davidellison.com, all the social media stuff pushes through there.
Right. And in terms of pushing things off till next year, you were talking about, you guys have been working on a studio record sometime in 2021.
Yeah. In fact, we're literally working on it today. Andy Martingelli, when Thom was here in town, we went over to LA to go shoot the video for Auf Wiedersehen with Al Jorgensen, and we came back here to Phoenix. We actually did a live stream from our house, and we actually ended up writing 3 songs those couple of days Thom was here. We went down to the studio here in town, and we tracked some demos of them. So Andy is over in Italy sending files back. So usually I wake up in the morning and I look at my WhatsApp, and he's pushed through a bunch of, hey, check out the new version of the song. Cool. So yeah, it's great. It's really productive. We're always kind of working 24 hours around the clock, and which has been great. So yeah, that record's really, it's interesting. Doing the No Cover project pulled us away from the original record, which I find is often good when you're working really hard on stuff, to just step back. It's kind of like when you're kind of looking for the piece of the puzzle, and you can't find it, and you step away and you go get a cup of coffee, and you come back and the piece has been laying there the whole time. You just couldn't see it. Right. I find that I think was probably a good perspective for us to get on the actual original solo record that'll be coming out next year, 2021. Is we got a chance to step back and listen to it with fresh ears. Yeah. Realized the strength.
And we got a chance to step back and make a bunch of different music too. Yeah. You know what I mean? Which is nice.
Yeah. And one thing with No Cover is the songs were already written, right? So obviously, a year of writing was already done for us because these songs were written. But you also get to scope into a bunch of different artists. Again, Queen, Judas Priest, Motorhead, and you realize the greatness of why these songs were so great and why they've stood the test of time. And I think probably for me and Thom to get to go back and go, why at age 11 or 12 did this song really impact me, and it still rocks my world today? And and I think when you're writing original material, I know we've always done this in Megadeth, is we don't want to write songs for the times. We want to write songs that are timeless, and that is a very different skill set, and it's a very different approach to writing a song. Anybody can sit down and write a song about COVID-19 right now, but hopefully in 2 years, no one will give a shit because it'll be over. You know what I mean? I mean, that's the thing. So when you're writing things that are timeless,
that's nobody wants.
When you're writing things that are timeless, you're writing about usually the human struggle, the humans, the things that are human, because those will always resonate with people forever, because times may change, but people never do.
Yeah. And that's kind of where I write too, as a lyricist. I mean, everything I write is, it's not like I'm writing topical, it's more personal and reflective and stuff that I think people can, and I'm sure you've probably heard Simple Truth and some of the other stuff, and it is. I mean, again, this record is so great. I mean, No Cover is awesome, but I mean, I'm really excited about the stuff we're writing and recording. I mean, the people who've heard it, I mean, their minds are just fucking blown. It's not at all what you'd expect. It's not a simple thrash metal record. It's just really textured hard rock. I mean, it's really an incredible
and somewhat progressive, some really cool stuff. Cool. Andy Martingelli is a vice president of a music school. So I'll send him the most simple boneheaded riff, and he will really turn it into something. And that's great collaboration, where I can start the first drawing on a whiteboard and he can jump in and really, mathematically take it to a place that I just go, wow, I would have not gone there with that. And so he makes me better. And I think again, by the kind of the originating the ideas, and then Thom will come in and just take it to another place. And I mean, I love it. I love that our band is collaborative. I am a collaborative person, and I like to share the creative journey, because it's a feeling when you create something together, you go, oh man, it's freaking awesome. That's a great take, and it just brings, power and shivers to your skin, you go, oh God, it's freaking awesome, man. Like that, to me, that's the connection. And that, I think, where we're always striving to go with every song that we write together.
Yeah. Well, to your point about, things being timeless, it's something that I've thought a lot about in terms of, working with and around a lot of, comedians. You hear about a lot of them, when they start performing again, it's like, oh yeah, everybody's going to have like 5 minutes about pandemic and all that. But then after those 5 minutes, nobody's going to want to hear about it anymore. It's like, yeah, okay, great. I'm glad you've been sitting on this for 6 months. What about like why we like you, So,
yeah, right.
Nobody's going to want to buy the album from the band that has like 12 We're All in This Together songs. It's like, no, how about a couple songs about how we hate each other?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
I'm writing the songs about how I hate everybody. Yeah.
So, all right. So Tom, when you ran off, what did you find there?
This is something that I one of my acquisitions that was not again, but it's one of those things you don't have any fucking choice. So this is, I don't know if you can see it. Let me see. Oh, you get
it's in a nice frame and it's got an envelope on the back. So.
It is. That is the certificate of authenticity.
Very nice.
Let's see if you can figure out a way to
see some. It looks like it says Jim Henson. Looks like is that a Kermit sketch?
Yeah. Hi from Kermit the Frog and Jim Henson.
Wow.
Kermit sketch.
And that's cool.
That's very cool.
And I, being one with a Kermit tattoo on my chest.
Wow.
I mean, again, that was just one of those things where it was not really cheap. Actually, but I got a really good. One of my friends works for Disney, and it's funny. He lived here, and he moved here because his dad was sick, so he was moving back to California. So he just wanted to get rid of a bunch of stuff, and this was one of the things in his collection. He had a couple other. They're too big that I can't bring them in and show you, but they're equally epic. I have a Deadpool cast.
Nice.
Movie one sheet signed by the whole cast and Stan Lee. I have a couple pretty cool, weird. But again, and I bought this, so I'm going to put this in a shadow box with the Kermit and Jim Henson.
Oh, very cool.
Funko Pop. So that's my plan for this. So
which kind of looks like you, just looking at that. It's actually the beard. It's got kind of.
It's the Thom Hazaert Funko Pop. Yeah, exactly.
I love it.
Well, guys, thanks so much for being so generous with your time. I was like, all right, I'll only bother them for like 20 minutes, but here we are. It's been an hour, and I'm really looking forward to hearing the whole record and looking forward to people being able to hear it. And now, when you guys are able to tour for it, there's going to be a lot of tough decision making.
We do have 3 shows with Saliva in Texas and Louisiana. October 30th, we're in San Antonio. On Halloween, we're in Slidell, Louisiana. And on November 1st, we're in Houston. So you can find those dates all over the place on our.
Yeah, I mean, that's the kind of the thing, when we were when I was first doing interviews during, lockdown, quarantine, whatever you want to call it, nobody had anything, but you're starting to hear from people. I've referenced this a couple of times. I was talking to this guy, Randy's in Autograph. And I was saying like, oh, so you guys are going to tour next year? He's like, no, we just played last weekend. It's 7,000 people outside in Colorado.
Yeah.
So there are gigs. It's just, I live in Los Angeles. We don't even have movie theaters. So
we're just there. Exactly. I mean, look, and that's the thing, like we're talking about, we're doing these shows in Texas. They only sold half capacity.
Sure,
they're in kind of bigger rooms. We're taking all the precautions we can. I mean, we're going to keep the meet and greets and everything kind of socially distant and try and keep it as safe as possible. And we're talking about in November, December, going out in the Midwest and the East Coast, some places that are slowly opening back up and just doing some. Look, I'd rather be out doing smaller shows and doing something and bringing joy to people. Look, the reality is David's in one of the biggest bands in the world. They tour constantly. So we get I get them for this one little window when Megadeth isn't on tour. Right. So I want to do as much as I can. You know what I mean? Yeah. So does David, So we have this one little window to sneak in whatever we can in between Megadeth stuff. So that's kind of where we're at,
Well, they can find all that information on everything that we've been talking about for the past hour. Just go to davidellefson.com, all the other places too, but you can always start there. Yeah. David Ellefson, Thom Hazaert, thanks so much for chatting with me, guys. I really
You're welcome, Christian.
Thank you, buddy.
See you, buddy.
Have a great day.
Yeah. Bye.
You too.